Hello all sentient beings and welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, where we talk about all news, comics, and media related to the... On this episode of Transmissions Alt Mode, we review the classic G1 Transformers episode, S.O.S. Dinobots. IDW gives us a preview of Livio Ramondelli's artwork from Transformers Galaxies, and your listener questions. Today is Friday, August 2nd, 2019, and this is episode 140 of Transmissions Alt Mode.
Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, the podcast that has tiny brains, just like real radio hosts. I'm your host Charles, aka Big C, and I'm joined by the excellent Transmissions team. Daryl, the Cybertronian Beast.
I take exception to that intro. Let's talk Transformers.
Well, blame it on the G1 cartoon show writers. It's logic straight from there. All right. If you listen to the toy show, you may have noticed we are operating with a couple of hosts out this week, but Daryl and I are here, and that's all you need. So we're going to keep going.
I mean, we're the two best, really.
Of course, we are.
Do we need the guy that pushes the buttons to make the sounds in between the segments? We don't need him. Or the
Mike adds it in post anyway, right?
Yeah, or the guy that puts swear words in. No, we're good. We can do this.
All right, as always, we start off by thanking our Donatrions, those lovely people who give us money on Patreon and PayPal. This week we have a special thanks to Will, who recently increased his Patreon pledge. Thank you, Will. And we really appreciate your continued support. If you would like to join Will and support Transmissions, you could then go to transmissionspodcast.com/support, and that's where you can find links to support us on Patreon and PayPal. Another supporter we want to give a shout out and thanks to is Alpha Magnus. We hung out with him at TFCon a couple weeks ago, and he gave us an awesome gift, some custom rubber wheels that go for the War for Cybertron Siege Ironhide figure. And he's making those available to everyone. So I think he 3D prints them, and he's selling them on his Etsy store, or you can support him on Patreon. So if you go to etsy.com/shop/alphamagnus, or go to patreon.com/alphamagnus, and you can get his wheels. They're $10 unpainted from the Etsy store, or you can get them painted if you support him on Patreon. So thanks, Alpha Magnus, and thanks for supporting the Transformers community. Also, you can support us. If you don't want to become a Transmissions Donatron, you can still support us by buying some of our merchandise from our TeePublic store. So if you go to transmissionspodcast.com/shop, you can get some cool t-shirts. And you can also support our friend K-Girl, who has her store, teepublic.com/user/superstark. And she also has some cool shirt designs, and she's helped us out with art in the past, done lots of art for us, and has her own designs as well as making our designs look great. So thank you, K-Girl. Also, I want to remind you, this is coming out on Friday, and the following Monday will be episode 3 of the new Transformers RPG podcast, Empire of Rust. So episodes 1 and 2 are out right now. You can go to listen to them, and episode 3 will be out on Monday. So it's the world's first, best, and only Transformers RPG podcast, done by our editor and awesome producer, Mike Ordway, and his friends. So listen for that. All right, let's get into some of the comics news this week. All right, so first up, we've got some preview images from Transformers Ghostbusters number 4 and 5. So these are the final issues of the miniseries. This teases, of course, the Ghostbusters colored Optimus Prime. So that was showed off at SDCC. So now I think it was an SDCC exclusive. You could buy it there. So
yeah,
and you can get it at Fan Expo next month. So
it's the end of this month.
Oh yeah, that's true. When this as this comes out, it'll be August 2nd. So yeah. So yeah, so he is going. So the Ghostbuster Optimus Prime will make an appearance in the comic. So, couple of months for that. We also have some artwork preview from Transformers Galaxies #1. This is Livio Ramondelli's work on the Constructicons. It's a very small preview image. Just there's like the glowy eyes and silhouettes of the Constructicons. So not much to. But we also have the Nick Roche cover, which is also the poster that we got from our friend who sent it to us from Comic-Con. But yeah, so that'll be coming in September, the first issue, and. Livio's been really excited about that, so we got to talk to him at TFCon about it. He was on the panel at SDCC for IDW, and so I'm intrigued. I hope it's it's a really well done series.
He did give us some tidbits about the series coming up, and the series really does have an interesting storyline to it. So I'm eagerly looking forward to it.
And maybe we'll get a chance to talk to the writer Tyler Blazinski as well. So
We'll
see if we can make that happen. All right, last bit of news. We got IDW Transformers solicitations for October 2019. So nothing really shocking in these solicitations. We've got the last issue of Transformers Ghostbusters #5 that's coming out in October. Nice way to coincide with Halloween. That's a good timing there. We've also got the main Transformers book. Number 14 is coming in October. And then Transformers Galaxies #2 will also be out. So 3 Transformers books in October. So we should have comic reviews 3 of the 4 weeks, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's move on to our review for this episode of Alt Mode. And so we didn't have a new IDW comic this week, so we are going to review a classic G1 episode, S.O.S. Dinobots. So this was a good one. You remember this one, Daryl?
Oh yeah, this was a good one.
Do we have to do we want to summarize it, or do we just want to start talking? I didn't write anything for this review. I don't know if you want to give a brief synopsis.
I mean, this episode is the creation of the Dinobots. That's the short kind of elevator pitch, and if there was ever an episode of a TV show that kind of showed you what plot armor was. This is that episode. And if you don't know what plot armor is something where the plot of the TV show or the book or the comic or the whatever, it rests on the character that it's about. So the armor is the fact that it's the character needs to survive or needs to be incredibly powerful because the whole crux of the show or the episode depends on this character. So they're essentially unstoppable. So in S.O.S. Dinobots, this is season 1, episode 8. They are unstoppable characters in this episode. The Autobots can't stop them. The Decepticons can't stop them. This is plot armor to a T. And yeah, it's kind of comical and a little scary when the Autobots are having trouble at the beginning, but then it's impressive at the end when they are absolutely running through the Decepticons and they have nothing for them. You know, that's what I was watching when I was rewatching this. I was like, this is, you know, this needs to be kind of discussed at least a little bit. So yeah, I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed the rewatch. It's a fun episode. Did you want to kind of point out anything else about the kind of the plot or any kind of summarize?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the plot armor. It also felt like the Autobots had like I don't know, they were like they were like plot stripped naked because they were like all super depowered. Like all the Autobots go to fight the Decepticons, and like 3 Decepticons take out all the Autobots in this episode. It was like, you guys used to put up a better fight than this. So.
That's right.
I also, as like I alluded to it in the intro, but the fact that Wheeljack just casually says, "Well, of course we gave them tiny brains just like real dinosaurs, because why wouldn't you just replicate the fatal flaw in something you're copying instead of improving on it?"
Yeah, why not?
So I just thought that was, you know, he's like, yeah, we made these really powerful giant monsters and we made them really stupid. Like, okay. That's why they call you the mad scientist, Wheeljack. But yeah, it was a fun episode. Also, Teletran 1 gets a lot of like, just it shows the kind of rocky relationship to that Teletran 1 had with the Dinobots, because I think here the Dinobots like destroy Teletran 1 looks seemingly for no reason, just because like Teletran 1 was in front of them. But then later on, like, it seems like Teletran 1 is the only thing they'll listen to. Like, you know, when Teletran 1's in trouble, it wakes up the Dinobots, and the Dinobots like protect it like it's their parent or something in later episodes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's kind of an abusive relationship or something. I don't know.
I got curious because I watched this, and they are built on Earth. They're one of seemingly many in the cartoon that are built on Earth. They are immensely more powerful than the Cybertronian Transformers, right? I'm curious, what do you think they're built of?
Yeah, it looks like they're just like it looks like they're excavated from rocks in the volcano. Doesn't I like in the beginning you see the Autobots like digging out like some metal or deposits from the volcano and assembling them from that. But yeah. They don't really go into like how they were able to create new Transformers. Like, you know, later on in the series, you of course have the whole like, you have to get Vector Sigma to give Transformers life and all this stuff. And here it's just like, oh, we needed some new robots, so we built some.
We just made them.
That's it.
Wasn't a big deal. They were dumb, but they work.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it also feels like they're not treated as full-fledged Transformers either, because as soon as they go haywire, Optimus Prime's like, oh, kill them. They're done. I don't want.
And were they? Do you think they were conscious when they barricaded them in the cavern?
I don't know. Yeah,
like, that's like war crimes.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I mean, Wheeljack...
That has literally haunted me since I saw it as a kid. I was like, they just barricaded those Dinobots in there, and they were alive. Like, they were turned on. They weren't dead.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, well, no, it's. I mean, it's definitely the Autobots are not. They are not following the Geneva Convention.
No, not at all.
I mean, and like Wheeljack and Ratchet, they're like their parents, right? So they're like, please, Optimus, don't kill my babies. And he's like, no, sorry, they're too dangerous. And then later on, they prove they saved my life, so I guess they can stay.
Yeah, they can stay. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Like, it's obviously it's it's very similar to plot armor, where you get the characters like super abilities are revealed in their origin episode or their first appearance episode, but then you'll never see those abilities ever again. Mm-hmm. So we're very familiar with the Dinobots from the 86 movie, where they breathe fire and they're able to take out sweeps like, no problem, right? But here in this first episode where they appear, they're firing lasers from their eyes, and Slag's firing from the horns on his head, and, they don't have that ability after this. That's gone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
The consistency of the abilities of these guys kind of, ebbs and flows here. It's not very consistent, but it's a cartoon, right? It's an 80s cartoon, and we got to kind of roll with that. The one thing I definitely noticed, and I'm sure you did too, the animation errors in this episode were abundant.
Oh yeah. Miscoloring,
wrong voices.
A lot of freeze. Yeah, wrong voices. A lot of freeze frames. Like, talking's going on, and you're just seeing this like static picture. It's like, I was particularly struck like one point when the Autobots drive to the falls, and like they all transform to robot mode, and then Blue Streak transforms back into car mode. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, it's like they just recycled an animation from somewhere else, but did it in the wrong order. It was just weird. I also like that, like Megatron's plan for this episode. He's like, we found this waterfall where they're generating hydroelectric power. So this one waterfall with this hydroelectric power will give me enough energy to conquer the universe.
Yeah.
Like, wow, that's a powerful waterfall.
He's overstretching with his with the abilities here. But yeah, it's and this is kind of overarching the entire series, but something that like they'll never try the same plot again, right? So here he is trying to take power from a waterfall power station, right? So the Autobots stop him once, and he was pretty successful, right? So the Dinobots come in. Well, he's never seen the Dinobots before, right? What's to say he doesn't wait 2 weeks and go try another waterfall, right?
Nah.
They foiled that plot once before. I'm not an idiot. I'm not gonna, try the same thing again with a slight modification. Maybe bring more guys.
I also liked, Huffer. They have like he has a couple of moments where he's like, "Oh, this will never work," and then like Huffer, like somehow I don't know if Huffer had a lobotomy or something. Like he forgot like the key feature for all the Autobots is that they transform. Like when Ratchet and Wheeljack introduce the Dinobots and they're in robot mode. He's like, hey, it's a Dinobots. We built these Dinobots. And Huffer's like, oh, you were supposed to make dinosaurs. Ha, ha, ha. Like, maybe they'll transform. I
thought you were making dinosaurs.
Like, Huffer, you do know how to, you all transform, right?
You realize that's what we do? Yeah. The Slag in this one, obviously, it is the first appearance of all the Dinobots, or all the first three anyway. But they do. This is the first time you see Slag, in which he is a red-faced Slag, which is contrary to the main release of the toy, which was black-faced. And it's, there's a red-faced Slag that was released, and it was very, very hard to get. The main coloring that you did find in most of the retail boxes was a black face on them, black hands, and what else was black? There's mostly whatever was red on the red face one was black on the other ones, and it was just the mold swap out. They just swapped out the plastic, but the animation stayed the same throughout the series. So Slag always had a red face in the show, and that made that early run of those red-faced slags really rare and highly sought after. So, yeah, if you were lucky enough to get one of those, then, good on you. But yeah, it's interesting because you look at it and you're like, oh, yeah, that slag, that Dinobot doesn't look like the one I have. Mine's a little different, but yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Slight differences with the toys, right? Because there was eventually Swoop. I think Swoop was blue, wasn't he? I think. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and there's slight differences, but it's neat. It's just a neat kind of thing to see and look back on. But as far as the episode goes, it's a goofy episode. It's. I like some of the quips. Yes, okay, he should have been Frenzy, but Rumble in the show, right? He's got some great lines in this episode, right? I just found him very witty, right? Nice shooting if you were aiming for the sky. It's just kind of, it's just funny. And then when he tries to knock Sludge into the ground and into the hole he kind of breaks into the ground, then Sludge moves and knocks him into the ground or knocks him down. He's like, no fair, right? He's kind of complaining. I don't know. It's just it's a clever kind of fun show. I enjoyed it. It's campy, it's fun, but yeah, I don't know. I like it.
It was also like at the beginning when you have Soundwave and Reflector spying on the falls. I was thinking like how like it took 4 robots what you can do with your smartphone these days.
Yeah.
Because you've got Soundwave, he's got the little recording mic, and then the Reflector is taking all the pictures. Not even video, just taking pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like when Megatron gets hit. The one of the best parts, honestly, in the entire show, is Megatron gets hit and he goes down with my equilibrium, right? But Starscream immediately claims leadership of the Decepticons, right?
Yep.
And I thought that's probably my favorite part of the entire episode.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of like Megatron's like, I spun around too fast, I'm dizzy. Megatron has fallen, I'm the new leader.
Yeah. It's like okay. The best. I wonder if that's the first time that he claims leadership, or I'd have to go back and watch the first few episodes, but yeah, when he really just like, it's obviously it's a running thing with the entire series, but when was the first time that he just really goes after it like that? Anyway, it was fun. It was a fun episode. I like it.
And all the G1 episodes are still streaming for free on tubetv.com. So we'll have a link to this in the show notes if you want to relive. If you don't have the DVDs or a way to watch the G1 Transformers, you can watch them on Tubi TV. And that does work in Canada as well. So
can confirm.
So you can check that out. All right. Well, that is our classic review of S.O.S. Dinobots. So let's move on to convention news.
All right, and in convention news this week, Transformers artist Jack Lawrence is going to be making an appearance at TFCon DC. Rest in forgiveness.
It's very epic, apparently.
He comes in with an epic presence. He's the Jack of Lawrence.
That was terrible.
No, you don't like that? No, okay.
No.
But he'll likely put up a convention commission schedule or list and be taking that. So if you are not following him on Twitter and you are hoping to get some kind of commission from him, maybe follow him on social media and wait for that list to go up, because it will be there, and he will draw some fancy robots for you. Or other stuff. He's likely to do other stuff. He can draw lots of things.
Yeah, he also has a show Bible book.
Yeah.
Lost Light series Bible that he was selling. We met him at TFCon Toronto. So he's made an appearance at every TFCon this year. So he was at LA, he was at Toronto, and he will be at DC. So
look at that. Very
cool. He's a cool guy. He, meeting him in person, really nice to talk to. Nice guy.
And he is jacked.
He is.
See what I did there?
Yes. Very nice, Daryl.
Okay.
You redeemed yourself. You redeemed yourself.
That was a good one?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But yeah, check out Jack Lawrence if you want to commission. Check out his social media, as Daryl said, and show him some love. All right, well, let's finish up the show with some feedback.
Hey guys, John 4X11 Good here again. I want to give my feedback on the ongoing comics. My background with comics is very limited. I've never really collected them, barely even read them. So this Transformers comic was my first chance at catching any of the Transformers from issue 1 on. And for me, I'm enjoying it. I listen to your guys' feedback on it, and I can see and understand what you're talking about. But as for someone who has hardly any comic background, personally, I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun with it. Just want to let you guys know that there, outside of the reviewers, there are people out here that do enjoy the comic and is really liking it. I like seeing some of my favorite characters. I like seeing how the story's going. Again, as I said before, though, I do understand and see your guys' criticisms of it. I just I see and understand it, but I still enjoy it. Thanks again. Bye.
All right, Charles. Well, I think you should take this one, and maybe I'll kind of chip in at the end.
Okay. So John, I think Jeremy and I talked about this last week. I think there are lots of good ideas in the new series, and as we said, several times, our problems with is with the pacing and with the slow moving nature and kind of the lack of action. So, and for me, this last issue 9 that we reviewed last week, I think was a step in the right direction for me. I will say, if you don't have any familiarity with previous Transformers comics, definitely I would pick up like the More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise trades. If you can find and we've got the Humble bundles that they do periodically. Maybe if the next time there's a Humble bundle, if you can check that out, that's a way to get a lot of comics cheaply and have a lot of stuff to read through. But yeah, I would say that's my example of kind of the best Transformers comics work we've had, like when the stuff written by James Roberts and John Barber, with art by Andrew Griffith and Alex Milne, and colors by Josh Perez and Josh Bertram. I think that first season of More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise was really the high watermark for me in terms of Transformers comics, in terms of storytelling, pacing, art, action. I think it just had the perfect mix of everything you could want in a Transformers comic. So that would be my highest recommendation for comics. And of course, there's other stuff. Last Stand of the Wreckers, I think that's another mini series that is a really good example of great Transformers comics. Lots of G1 stuff. If you go back to the G1 it's 80s comics, so it's a little bit hit or miss. But the latter stuff with Simon Furman, written by Simon Furman, art by Jeff Senior, I think those issues are really good. If you can track down the UK comics, Marvel comics from the 80s, those are good too. And the Generation 2 comics, the art in Generation 2 comics is really good. So those would be my recommendations. If you want to see why, this is kind of why the bar for us is higher in terms of looking at the current Transformers series, and why, we've seen all the great Transformers comics that have been put out in the past, and why at least I feel like this series hasn't really hit its stride yet for me. So those are my thoughts. You have any follow-up, Daryl?
Yeah, well, for John, I think I agree a lot with what Charles said. Obviously, he's much more of a comic guru than I, although I do, I obviously I read them all. I have them all, but I think I'm going to disagree with him on one point, and that is, if you're enjoying the current run, then I might hold off on reading the past run. It was, I mean, obviously you can pick and choose where you start, but in the grand scheme of it, it was what, 13 years, right? It was 13 years worth of comic books, which is an awful lot to read, right? So sure, you can close in on the last 4 or 5, maybe 6, if you wanted to just get all of the James Roberts stuff, and read just that. But it could muddy the waters with what you're kind of, just getting into with the Brian Ruckley stuff. So if it were me and I was just starting out with a comic book series, and there had been a big prominent one in the past, I would probably avoid that one just so that I could keep everything straight with the one that I'm currently reading, because I don't want to confuse, because a lot of the same characters appear in both. So
yeah, that's true. I
would want to keep those separate, right? Because if you read one and one's got Optimus Prime and the other one's got Optimus Prime, and especially if you're trying to play catch up with the previous incarnation, you'd probably read more than one in a week, or in the time that the current one comes out. You'll start to not be able to disassociate one universe from the other, right? So I might avoid that. Go, definitely, if you have the opportunity to buy it as a humble bundle, right? If you can buy 13 years worth of comic books for like $15, do it, right? That's, definitely a great buy, but read them in a few years, right? Hold on to them and come back at them at a later date. Just on the fact that I don't want you to start to dislike the current run, because of either confusion or seeing what was prior, right? And yeah, so I say keep going with what you're doing. If I apologize that we're a little bit more negative on it. It tends to happen when you've got so much history invested, but yeah, I think I'm glad that you're enjoying them. I really am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't think we, at least our intention with reviewing the comics is not to make anyone feel bad if they like them. I mean, if that were the case, I'd be feeling terrible every week. Yoshi just complains about hating the comic every time because, there are lots of times he didn't like anything that, or nearly anything that the previous artists and writers were doing on the previous, IDW comics.
Yeah.
So, we're just expressing our opinions, and, we try to give, I think constructive criticisms about what we think what the problems are, and what we see as how we would like to change it. But we're not professional comic artists or writers either. So, what do we know? But, but yeah, I mean, I think, and we're still, I mean, it's part of it's kind of part of our mandate. We're sticking with the series to, we're going to keep riding it until, until the end, because we still, in the end, we still love Transformers, and we want to see them succeed, even if it's not exactly what we want. So keep reading, keep enjoying. All right, we have another person who's positive on the new comics, and this is from Ray, who left a comment on our YouTube from episode 136 of Alt Mode. So Ray says, I really love the comic. I don't mind it going at the pace that it is going because the writer is building the world. I want to see how everyone is right now because even though we know the characters from other interpretations, we are getting a story from the ground up. To just have battles on the first page and you don't know what it's about or why they are battling takes away from the story. We all know Megatron and Optimus Prime are going to fight. That's a given. However, the story around the fight is what makes it good to read. The fact they are friends now and we get to see both of their mentors and how they interact with them is amazing. So when the betrayal happens, it will mean a whole lot more than just a fight that we know is going to happen all along. It's also interesting to see these new personalities develop. I think it's a great comic and I can't wait to read the next one. Well, I'm glad you're happy, Ray. I mean, I still will say, for us and, for me in particular, it's not, I just don't want to see, I like a mix of different things in the story. So for me, the current story has been too far on the side of, not a lot of conflict, not a lot of things happening and just world building. I like world building. I like lore, but I think you have to have that in service of a plot that moves forward at a reasonable pace. And, Transformers is built on conflict, so you have to have some conflict in the story. I mean, you want to show how it's building, but you have to have something in each issue that keeps you hooked. So that's my feeling. But I'm glad you're enjoying it, and keep going.
Yeah, and Ray, I don't know whether you remember, but the when we first started reading the book, right? I'm generally the guy who is all about the fight in the book, right? I want somebody to just get a punch, punch somebody kind of thing. I was willing to give them the first 5 issues, build your world, kind of thing. I felt I was being, with my tastes, being very lenient with how the story was being told, but expected some kind of conflict by the end of the first 5 issues. And when it didn't happen, I was very disappointed. And when it didn't happen after 6, and then when it didn't happen after 7, right? I mean, here we are, and it's tough to keep going on that. It's a lot of world building, and for a person like me who likes a faster read, right? So less words on the page, right? And more action being kind of drawn. It's a tough haul for me. But I get what you're saying, and it is a world build, and either Brian Ruckley is building a massive world, although it doesn't seem to be that big. It's very concentrated in one or two areas. So I'm with it. Like Charles, we're here for the long haul, good or bad, and but. Yeah, I'm glad that you're enjoying it as well. The books, they need to be sold, and I hope that you keep buying them. I hope you pull a Shelton and are buying 3 covers, 3 copies of each. It's still a Shelton, Charles. I'm sure. I'm sorry. It's.
I haven't done that in years.
Hey, still. When was the last time I said Deckles?
Just now.
Hey, there you go.
All right. We have one more piece of feedback. This was an email from Beth. And Beth wants to hear some of our comic book predictions. So she says, Hi guys, I'm really interested to hear your predictions on how the war will actually start in Brian Ruckley's story. Is the Rise connected to the Decepticons? Who's in charge? How did the Decepticons become the Decepticons, etc., etc.? Personally, I'm also struggling with this book. The descriptions before it was even released made it seem like we'd get a lot of focus on Cybertronian society and what it was like in its golden age. But so far, it's been kind of a boring mystery/political drama with awkward dialogue, in my opinion. The one thing that really interests me is seeing how it all comes together. I'd love to hear your ideas. So, Beth, at least if I were to make a guess, I mean, just based on what we saw from the last issue, so issue 9, the last issue we reviewed last week, I got the feeling that the Rise is probably a shadow organization for the Decepticons, and Megatron's really in control of everything, and he puts on a face that he's all peaceful and wants peaceful change, but the Rise is his blunt instrument, that he has plausible deniability that he's not in charge of it. That's going to be my guess, is that the Rise is the Decepticon shadow enforcement organization, and they are planning a much bigger operation that's hidden from view, and that's going to be ready to take over when Megatron says the word. That's my guess.
I mean, that seems like a pretty good guess if you had to make one. I remember either it was when we were talking to Brian Ruckley or through another kind of interview, he said that the war will start with the death of a character, right? With the death of one character, right? And obviously through issue 1, we thought it was Brainstorm, right? Like, that was okay. Well, issue 1, here we go. It's started, right? And it wasn't him. Now, as we move along, we think it's someone else. I don't want to really give it away in case someone's not seen it or read it, but it's maybe it's not them either, right? So there's a couple teases here that so he said it's one character. Both leaders, we've got Pax and we've got Megatron, both have, like Charles said, they both have a mentor, right? I don't care who you are. You kill someone's mentor, you're gonna make someone really upset, right? So, does something happen to Megatron's mentor that he drives him over the edge? I don't know. It's something that I haven't really put a lot of thought into, how the war is going to really start. But I do think. I do like the idea that the Decepticons and the Rise are the same kind of organization, but it's kind of like the Rise is kind of like the Hit Squad or the DJD kind of deal, it's I think the war is already kind of started already. It's just the opposite side doesn't realize it yet. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one thing, we had one scene a couple of issues ago where Megatron went to talk to, I guess, his mentor, Termagax.
Yeah.
And it felt like he was at least trying to get a feel for where she was in terms of what she thought of the Decepticons. It seemed like the last bit of dialogue after he leaves talking to her, when she basically just blows him off and says, do whatever you want. I don't care. I'm not interested anymore. And then Megatron communicates with Soundwave and says, I talked to Termagax and she won't interfere. So that made me think that Megatron's got plans, and he just wanted to make sure Termagax wasn't going to come back to disrupt those plans, she originally founded the Ascenticons. And, you know, if she didn't like what he was doing, she could put a stop to it. So that makes me that gives me a hint that he's got something more violent planned than what is currently visible. Mm-hmm. So, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of things that I'm interested in. It's just, it feels like it's just taking forever to get there. Like, you know, it just needs to go a little faster. All right. Well, that's all our feedback for this week. So thanks for sending in all your thoughts on the comics. That was a good discussion.
Yeah, that was some good feedback. I really like that.
Yeah. And yeah, keep them coming as we continue to review these issues. And that'll do it for this week's episode of Transmissions Alt Mode. So thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Later.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions Podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
I was expecting Jeremy to do the sound. Where's Jeremy?
Why? Why are you doing the sound, Jeremy?